So here is, we're going to be on page 14. So page 14 is titled Solving by Completing the Square. And I'm going to turn to the page of kind of how an idea of what 5 boxes would look like. So again, your title is Solving by Completing the Square. Alright, so in box 1 are steps to solve. So completing the square is utilized when you can't factor. I know you've all been wondering what to do when I can't factor. None of the methods work. Ha ha ha. This is what we can do. Okay? We're going to complete the square. So there are 6 steps. Step 1 is we're going to add or subtract the C term. So if it's positive, then we're subtracting it. If it's negative, then we are adding it. And then we're going to divide all sides by the A. So whatever A is, we're going to divide every single term by A. And then we're going to find our magic C, our missing C value. And then we're going to add the magic C to both sides. And we're going to factor the left side using method number 6. And simplify the right side just by combining like terms. Bless you. And then we're going to do our inverse operations. So inverse operations, opposite of squaring something is the square root. Opposite of adding something is to subtract. Opposite of multiplying is to divide.
There's close one.
It's necessary. Alright, any questions for me about any of the steps so far? Okay. I'm going to give you another minute to get them down. Remember, if you don't get all the steps down, you will be able to access them through the They're not hidden from you. But we're going to go ahead so that we can have time to practice the steps. If you go out of order, if you try to make up extra steps, that is where you get lost. So step 1 tells us that we're going to add or subtract our C term. Remember, this is your A term, your B term, your C term. So I have a -1, so what do I need to do? Add 1. So I'm adding 1 to both sides. That eliminates this one, and I'm left with x squared plus 10x equals positive 1. Did I lose anyone on step 1? Okay, step 2 says to divide by your A. Well, is there an A for me to divide by? No, because A just equals 1, so we're good. Step 3 says to find my magic C. To find your C, it equals your B that you have now, B divided by 2 squared. So that's going to be 10 divided by 2 squared, which is 5 squared, which equals 25. How do we feel about step 3? Step 4 says we're going to add our magic C to both sides. So now we have x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 1 plus 25.
You don't put 26.
Yeah. Step 5 is to factor the left and simplify the right. So when I factor the left, we're using method number 6. So this becomes x plus 5 squared equals 26. And now we're just down to the solving, which is what your homework was over. Getting x by itself. So using our inverse operations. So the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root, and what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. So I'm left with x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 26. To get x by itself, I still need to move the 5. So I'm going to subtract the 5. When I go to the other side, I cannot combine them because this is a rational number and this is an irrational number. So they stay separate. And that is your final answer. What are your questions? Doable? All right, so we're going to do 3 more examples. I was hoping you have some class time, but we don't have 10 minutes left. You'll just have to do the practice example. But here we go. So, again, step 1 is to do what? Move my c, and my c is a positive 10, so when I move it, it's going to become a negative 10. So I'm working with negative x squared plus 6x equals negative 10. Step 2 says to divide by my a. Well, for this problem, my a equals negative 1. So I'm going to divide every single term by negative 1, every term on the left and the right. And I'm left with x squared minus 6x equals positive 10, right? A negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, step 3 is where I find my magic c. So c equals, and what's my b? Negative 6 over 2 squared, which is just negative 3 squared, which is positive 9. And 4 tells me I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 10 plus 9. Step 5, I'm going to factor and simplify. So using method number 6, we have x minus 3, and that's because my b value is negative, so my binomial is negative, equals 19. And now we're down to just solving. So using inverse operations, I'm going to take the square root, because the opposite of squaring is to square root. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So we're left with x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 19. Add 3 to both sides. So our answer is x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 19. Are we okay? All right. I'm not getting any questions, so I feel like we're safe. All right, our third example. We have 2x squared plus 11x minus 23 equals negative x plus 3. So notice this time that we have a variable hanging over here. Before we can start any of our steps, we have to move the variable. So how can I move that negative x, I'm sorry?
Add it to the 11.
I'm going to add it. I'm going to add it to its like term. That's it. I don't add it to everything, just to where its like term is. So now I'm working with 2x squared plus 12x minus 23 equals positive 3. And now I can begin. So step 1, same thing. I'm going to move my c. It's a negative, so I'm going to add. And I have 2x squared plus 12x equals 26. Step 2, divide everything by my a. So divide everything by a. And that leaves me with x squared plus 6x equals 13. Step 3 is to find my c. And my b again is what? This time positive 6. So we have 6 divided by 2 squared, which equals 9. Step 4 says to add your c to both sides. And of course, as you get better at this, some of these steps you can condense because you're like, oh, I see the pattern. I see what's happening. That's part of the learning process. Step 5, factored and simplified. And now we're at step 6 where we're going to solve. Opposite of squaring is to take the square root. So I'm left with x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 22. Subtract my 3. My answer is x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 22. So do y'all see how it's building up this week led to this? Hope we see the build up. Now if I switch straight to this on Tuesday, how would you feel? I'm taking silence, it's probably not too cool. Alright, our last example. We have 3x squared plus 4x equals 2x squared plus 3. So again, I'm like, oh no, there's a problem. There's a variable on the right side. I'm going to subtract 2x squared, and it's going to be combined with 3x squared. So I'm now going to be working with x squared plus 4x equals 3. See, it looked like it was going to be a hard problem, but is it even hard? Oh. So step 1 is to move your c value. Well, is there a c to move? Oh, already done. Step 2 is to divide by your a. Well, a equals 1, so done, son. Step 3 is to find my c. c equals my b, which is 4, divided by 2 squared. That gives me 2 squared, which equals 4. And 4 tells me to add 4 to both sides. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 3 plus 4. 5, using method number 6 in our factoring steps. Factor that down to x plus 2 squared. Simplify this down to 7. And now step 6 is use my inverse operation. Opposite squaring is to square root. So we have x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 7. Oh, that's a weird looking 2. I didn't make it. Subtract 2 from both sides. And we get x equals negative 2. Guys, my pen is dying. This is our last problem. We're going to make it. Come on. Come on. There you go. Boom. There you go. Ta-da! So when you can't factor, what can you do?